Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Man, he's okay. What's up, everyone? I hope you're all okay. All right. In this video, I want to look at the second house. So let's get right into it. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. You know what to do. I have a abstract painting as a background today, but I'm not going to talk about that. All right, so here we just have the transits. And this is just a prop just to help us understand what the second house is. Okay. So the second house, a lot of times people, and I've talked about this before, people will say the ascendant is the mask. It's not who we really are. Who we really are is our sun sign, right? Which is interesting because we don't live on the sun, right? How can the sun be who we are when we clearly have a relationship with the sun? And it's like, like people get very abstract in their head, and it's good to keep things very, very grounded. When you're talking about, out there stuff, you want to get as grounded as possible, right? For me, my Mercury and Jupiter and South Node and Chiron and Descendant are all in Taurus, so that helps me be very grounded in my thinking, very practical, very just anyway, trying to get the camera right. Sorry. Um, so the grounding says that uh the sun, how can the sun be who we are when the sun is obviously very far away, it's very big. It's not that it's big, but it's the sun, and it's big and powerful, and we don't live on the sun, right? We live on the earth, right? And the rotation of the earth is shown by the ascendant and all the houses. So therefore, the ascendant is much more the self. The sun is the center of the galaxy, so I can understand why, but practically speaking, the most personal is the ascendant. So granted that this is the self, it's not really the mask. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you have to understand everything in relation to everything else. Astrology is not part and parcel of, like, just like piecemeal, like we're just going to collect a bunch of stuff and put it together and say, okay, this is what astrology is. There's an order to the whole of astrology. To all of archetypes, there has to be an order, right? And you have to understand the order and the flow of how things connect and how things work together, right? It's not just, oh, I read this a whole bunch of things about the second house, and this is what it is because it's said in the book, and I have to memorize it, and blah, blah, blah. You have to understand the order in order to understand it. It's not about memorizing what's in a book, right? If you want to understand astrology, understand the order of it, understand the harmony of it, understand the relationships of it. So what I'm trying to get at is, if this is the self, because it's the most personal point, it's the eastern horizon. It represents the turning of the earth. We live on the earth, therefore it's the most personal, right? Moon's second most personal. Sun's just the biggest. It's just the goddamn biggest. It's like, if you're in a kingdom, you are yourself, but the king is the fucking king, right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, the king is way bigger of a being than you, but you're still you, right? And you're not going to be like, I am the king. No, but the king makes the decisions, or the president, or whatever it is, for the country, for the land, right? And so that's sort of like the sun, right? It's just like uh the biggest and the most powerful and the center and the king of everything, right? The king is conjunct Pluto, so very powerful, obsessive king, Capricorn, right? Anyway, and then here we have our personal self, the ascendant. Second house is what comes after the self. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because people say the first house of the mask. Actually, the second house is much more like the mask. So if you want to know where a mask might be, and so because of this, there's easily a confusion, of course, because with the first house comes the second house, right? There is no first house without a second house. So there is a mask related to the house. It's just not the first house. It's more like the second house. The second house is our mask, right? Because it's our appearances. What is the second house? So the second house is everything that comes after the self, which means, like, if you're there naked, like completely, no makeup, no hairstyle, just naked, nothing, that's pretty much the ascendant. then you get dressed and you put on all your stuff. You do your hair, however you do your hair. You know, if you're me, you're shaving it, right? But maybe you have nice hair, your earrings, you know, makeup, jewelry, clothes, hats, you know, all the adornments, everything. So you're looking like, you know, you're looking sharp, you're looking fine. You're fully dressed to the nines. That's all second house stuff. Okay, that's the difference. You want to know the difference? That's the difference. You're naked here, all like just completely without anything, right? In the first house. Second house, you're dulled up. You're you know, dressed to kill or whatever, dressed for success or dressed for whatever you're dressed for, right? It might be different at different times. So people who have planets in the second house, they're going to be very concerned with how they look, with how they appear, with what kind of, you know, with their makeup, with their jewelry. And it doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to need to look a certain way. It might be like they need to look very earthy, very natural, right? It just means that it's going to be important to them. If you know, especially if first lord's in the second house or second lord's in the first house, then appearances and aesthetics, not only for themselves but for others, right? They're going to have a great sense of taste. These people, they're going to know what looks good. They're going to have a great aesthetic appeal, right? It's not necessarily creative. It's not deeply artistic, but it's aesthetic appearances, right? How does something look, right? And so you're going to see that a lot with people who are involved who you know, they could be fashion, not the only place that you can find fashion, but a lot of fashion would be here. Artistry, artistic, anything that uses aesthetics. um Obviously the second house is known for its relationship to money and resources, right? Because values, things you own, things you possess, right? You might look like $1 million, but you might actually have $1 million in the bank or more. And this is all very much a second house thing. Other assets could be a hard ass, other, you know, like um, fourth house would be how like home, like real estate, but still the value of it could be related to second house, right? Self-esteem and self-worth are found in the second house, and it's not always on a positive. You know, like you could have a bunch of, you know, like negative planets in the second house that really lower your self-esteem, right? Like a bad Saturn and you know, Chiron and Mars, um, or Moon that's poorly aspected or something like that. And it could be a combination of things, right? Sometimes people are very complicated. You know, on the one hand, they feel very confident, but they're trying to hide their own insecurity, which is very deep and, you know, underneath all the superficial appearances. That can happen too, right? But you're going to get a lot of concern or focus on self-esteem, self-worth, self-evaluation in the second house. Second house is also speech, right? So you see a lot of singers with loaded second houses, actors too, right? Actors and teachers. You'll see lots because of the speech, right? And the appearances, right? Because actors need to look good, and that singers don't. I mean, yeah, singers also need to look good. They need to sound good, more importantly, but they also need to look good, right? And so do public speakers, so do teachers, right? Bankers, you know, having, you know, all the assets in the second house, right? The other thing that the second house relates to is also intellectual resources. So like knowing a lot, right? Being an encyclopedia, studying and just being like, you know, gathering all that information, having a wealth of knowledge, which is a resource. It's an asset. And this is also very much second house. Also food, right? If you know, people can be obsessed with food with a lot of planets in the second house, depending on which planets they are, right? Not necessarily eating a lot. It just means like a lot of focus on food because it's the second, it's the mouth, right? And so that's the connection to that, the mouth and the throat and the tastes, very concerned with taste and sensuality, food quality, you know, what kind of foods you're going to eat, depending on the signs, the planets, the aspects, all of that, right? Um, yeah. It's not necessarily communication, but definitely speech. Anything else? Am I missing anything? No, I don't think so. But so like let's look at different planets, right? Um, so obviously Saturn in the second would create a very stoic, dry, reserved appearance, much more business and authority and reserved. Appetite might be restricted. Neptune in the second, like I have, I mean, I, Neptune in the second is often considered not a great position because the resources tend to vanish, disappear, right? And that's definitely true, but they can also come like magically. So Neptune's a bit of a wild card, right? It's sort of like money comes, money goes, and you're just like, wow, I don't even know what happened because Neptune, right? Um, yeah. Um, Sun in the second obviously is going to be very, very, like having a lot of ego and pride about appearances and speech and worth and value and confidence. Could be very confident, right? Um, Saturn can restrict money, especially when younger, right? You're going to be might be poor or have very limited expenses when younger, but when older, there could be success there. Because Saturn is much more of a mature planet. Uranus is a bit of a wild card here, especially like it can be like very sudden, like Neptune is nebulous. It's just like what happened? I have no idea. Uranus is very sudden, so like sudden gains, sudden losses, just like um, radical change, radical shifts in value systems and in resources. Um, yeah, money coming, money going, windfalls, investments and speculate like very risky investments and speculative type stuff. Well, speculative type stuff is fifth house, but like it could translate to second. Risky investments, um, things like that. Probably has very extreme taste in food and likes to appear very radical, Uranian. Um, Moon in the second will like to have a very feminine emotional expression or appearance rather. Um, let's see. Pluto in the second can be very obsessed with money, right? Very, very obsessive about money. And self-esteem can probably go from like the highest high to the lowest low, right? Like just like arrogantly obnoxious about their own self-evaluation or just like suicidally low, right? And it could be either one of those with Pluto's because Pluto's very destructive, but constantly regenerative, right? Mars in the second could be a spendthrift, right? Just like um reckless spending with money, resources, because Mars is very active and proactive and initiating. Um, the voice can be affected by all of these planets. Mars can give a rough, harsh voice, but can be very good for certain things. Let's see. Jupiter in the second usually brings a lot of wealth, right? Wealth and success, as does Venus in the second. Jupiter will give a very big, grandiose appearance. Venus, more like beautiful aesthetic, right? Um, Mercury in the second will definitely help with speaking, communicating, uh, um, actors, singers, um, communicators. Um, what else? Um, North Node in the second would be similar to Pluto in a way, very just obsessive about, security, finance, resources. Um, I think I went through all of them just very randomly. Yeah, if the second lord and 11th lord are connected, then that definitely brings money. But if the planets in the second house are well aspected and dignified, then that's also good for money. Um, or it can tell you how you can make money, right? Like here, Jupiter's in the third and in Taurus, so this could be writing, communication. Could be, sometimes third house is working with the hands. You see body work or musician, anything that work with skilled hands, right? Things like that. So, in any case, guys, yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, Second house is all those things, and so yeah, definitely the mask you want to know where the mask is, it's the second house. And it's also sextile to the 12th. So very important. Our self-esteem, our self-worth, our how we dress, how we appear to others, very much influences and is tied to our own subconscious mind. So it's important. Don't neglect it. Don't just be like, it's superficial, right? Like, who gives a shit if I look like trash? I'm not trying to look like trash. I'm not trying to look like $1 million. I'm trying to feel like $1 million. Well, you're not going to feel like $1 million if you're not taking care of yourself. You're dirty. Your clothes are dirty. You haven't shaven or cut your hair. You look like, you know what I mean? Like, all these things are really important. If you want to influence your subconscious, make an effort with how you appear all the time, as much as you can, right? I mean, sometimes we're all lazy. Like, sometimes I'm just like, I just don't have the energy or the time or whatever. But as much as I can, I do try and look good. I clean my body every single day. Um, Food, what you eat, is also extremely important, right? Like, if you're eating trash, don't expect to have a great life. Like, literally, like, if you're like, oh, I just eat fast food, but I'm going to be I'm going to be a billionaire. Like, well, maybe you will be, but it's definitely going to take its toll, right? Because you're eating trashy food, so that's influencing your subconscious mind, right? And that's going to influence everything, right? Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I talked about the importance of the second house in relation to the 12th house in other videos, but just wanted to briefly touch on that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the second house. And um, mediocre astrologer signing off. Man, he's okay. I'll see you guys again soon. I'll make another video probably pretty soon, and hit that like button, subscribe, laugh it off, take a victory laugh, win before you win, all that good stuff, guys. I hope you're doing well, and see you again soon. All right, thanks. Bye.